Actually, hello Johnny, what's up? I'm here on the Modball Rally. It's exhausting, but a ton of fun. I heard your Instagram's Cars with JB. I need to check it out. Give it a follow. I hope you are enjoying. I don't know what are you doing? I don't know what you're actually doing. Actually, I should have been briefed a little bit better. But thank you so much for watching Seen Through Glass, supporting Seen Through Glass. You're an absolute freaking legend. Loads of cool stuff coming up. But yeah, thanks for watching. Catch up with you soon. Bye bye.
Massive thank you to Seen Through Glass and my good friend Bianca for recording that little clip for me while on the Modball Rally. Super kind of him to take the time out to do that. Definitely check out his YouTube as well as Bianca's Instagram account. Links in the description below. How's it going, people? Today I'm going to be walking you through the 5 main things I love about Penny, my VW Polo 9N. I recently put out a video entitled 5 Things I Hate About My VW Polo 9N, which a few of my fellow 9N owners rightly suggested as a little bit unfair considering the charm and reliability of the car, as well as a few other positive factors that make it a great little car to own. If you want to see all the things I hate about Penny, click the icon on the top right hand side of the screen. I'd suggest you watch that before you watch this video, as I'll be referencing it throughout. Of course, the 9N is a brilliant car in an incredible, historic and generally universally loved car line. I would argue it's one of the best first cars you can have for so many reasons, and 3-door examples like mine give that real, I don't care about practicality, I'm young and don't mind clambering over seats vibe. I've owned my 9N since September 2017 after my previous car ended up in a bush following a brake failure. If you want to hear the story of how it happened in full, click the icon again and maybe cue the video for later. I promise it's a crazy story. Remember to like the video if you enjoy it, comment down below to let me know your thoughts on my wonderful 9N and subscribe for more weekly car content. Make sure you also hit that notification bell to make sure you're up to date on all upcoming videos. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. At number 5, the handling on the 9N is actually surprisingly solid. Obviously, it's front wheel drive, and the centre of mass is right over the front wheels considering where the engine sits, so it does like to understeer a little bit, but the Polo is really fun and easy to throw into and around corners. The understeer is super forgiving and the chassis is small enough that it doesn't really get too much body roll. It's not the quickest or fastest car in the world, as I mentioned in my other video, but if you keep the momentum up you do feel quite confident throwing the car deep into corners. This means that when annoying emasculated people in much faster cars, in this case an Audi, get a bit touchy about you passing them in your little 9N, you can beat them as soon as a corner comes along. Sorry not sorry to this bloke for getting passed around the outside. I drive the Polo on a lot of country lanes and I find it super easy to put the car where I want it. I'm yet to have a sketchy slide or unexpected loss of traction in it, which is pretty cool. And the weight transition feels super natural when turning right then left or vice versa. Compared with a lot of other first cars you could buy, it really does handle exceptionally well. And you can expect to win a lot of battles that you probably wouldn't when driving a Corsa or Fiesta from the same era within a similar price bracket. I can only imagine how good the faster, more sporty 9Ns are in the corners. 1.8T engine swap, anyone? At number 4, the Polo 9N is an incredibly cheap car in almost every way. I mentioned in the other video that it's not really that good for insurance, but other than that it's pretty kind to the wallet. Mine only costs £400 with around 80,000 miles on it, which is not dissimilar to other cars in its field, but from my experience you get such great reliability from cars in the VW group. As I mentioned in a previous video, my Skoda Fabia estate, which shares pretty much all of the 9N's components, took me 2,536 miles around Europe with absolutely no issues, and this car has done pretty much the same thing. Put oil and water in the car on a regular basis and she'll treat you well in my experience. The only negative I can think in terms of reliability is the coil packs. These 1.2 litre 3-cylinder engines love to let coil packs go, but this is an easy and inexpensive fix, and it doesn't happen regularly. In the 5 years I've had my Polo and Skoda, I've had coils go 3 times, which has come to about 60 quid. Really not that bad. In addition to this, with today's prices I can fill the tank for around £40ish. One full tank gets me to and from Bath from London easily, without even driving economically. And the car usually still has enough fuel left to drive around for a fair amount of time without having to worry about that tenacious little beep it makes when it hits the red line for petrol. Simply put, the 9N does not require you to have deep pockets, which means you get a lot for your money. At number 3, the 9N is surprisingly spacious inside, especially for passengers. Even my 3-door version has plenty of room. You can see here I'm able to sit comfortably in every seat despite being just over 6 foot tall. I'm no less comfortable in my 9N than in my mum's much larger Astra. You can comfortably fit 5 average sized people in the car. I've done trips in excess of 130 miles with 5 people in the car with no space issues, other than the engine struggling a little bit on hills. I know what it's like to be a passenger in the car too, as a mate of mine had a 9N while we were at school, and we would all fit in super nicely on trips to Tesco at lunch or whatever. I'm not saying it's a TARDIS, but it's definitely not a shower. If you've been keeping up with my channel and avidly watching the Pointless Polo Project, number 2 will come as no surprise. Modifications for the 9N are endless. In my other video I mentioned it's not the prettiest polo, but that doesn't stop it from having a wealth of mods, many of which are super cheap. As with the Pointless Polo Project, you can mod, or rice, the 9N to bits without breaking the bank. So far I've only scratched the surface of what I can do to my polo with minimal cash, including replacing the gear boot, wrapping the dashboard in carbon fibre, and plasti dipping the hubcaps black, which has cost me less than 30 quid in total. Back when the car was made, there weren't many opportunities to spec it. Even if you buy a new Polo today, the spec options are pretty limited. But 16 years later, so many companies offer OEM looking parts that feel like they should have been on the car when it was made. Speaking of which, for 3 quid I got these bad boys on Amazon which match the car really well. I didn't think they were worth a Pointless Polo Project episode, as if you can't remove and replace dust caps, you probably don't have hands. Loads of people have done much better and more insane mods to the 9N and have done a pretty good job of updating its looks. And the best part is that none of them will have spent ridiculous amounts of money on them because of how cheap it is to throw stuff on this little car. Ultimately, the 9N is a cheap canvas to be worked on and is super easy for people who are new to modifying cars. Finally, at number 1, the Polo 9N has bags of character. I have always been a fan of buying old second-hand cars as your first car. When I see school kids driving brand new cars, of course I'm a bit jealous and would also have loved to have had a nice new car as my first car. But at the same time, I also know that they are actually missing out on all the little quirks about old cars that build that relationship between humans and their vehicles. From all the little bumps and scrapes that tell a story, to the strange ways it has to be driven at times, Penny has all the character in the world. The fact that you're always a little bit wary of the car's age means that everything it does is way more impressive than if it was done by a new car. Completing long road trips, beating much faster cars in races, and driving off roads suddenly become novelties that grow your relationship with an old car like the 9N, whereas new cars would just be expected to do those things. Also, if I had a new car, I definitely wouldn't try some of the modifications that I'm trying on Penny. I feel like because she's not really worth anything monetarily, she has to be worth something sentimentally. And in my case, testing new modifications adds that sentimental value to the car. Basically, if you're in the market for a first car, or just something to have some pure driving fun in, look no further than the 9N. It's the perfect car for the job, with more character than anything you'd get new. So, to recap, I love my VW Polo 9N. I complain about her all the time for all the issues I mentioned in the other video, and for many other reasons, but as I said before, she's still my car, which makes her all the more important to me. And despite all the complaints, I do think the 9N is a great car for the reasons mentioned in this video. The handling is unreal, the cost is minimal, the size is surprising, the mods are endless, and the character is abundant. If you want to see more of my VW Polo 9N as I endeavour to make her more interesting, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all the exciting content that's coming up in the near future. If you enjoyed the video, remember to hit the like button, as it really supports the channel and lets me know whether or not I'm making the right content. Again, a huge thank you to Bianca and Seen Through Glass, it really means a lot. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.